burning building and come out carrying a slightly smoky tabby. Okay, it goes meow, you are a hero. Okay, now if you walk by and see that burning building, the little lady says, "My cat Mittens," and you run into the house and it falls down on your head. Okay, and somewhere from outside behind a bush, Mittens walks out and goes, then not only are you an idiot, you get a Darwin Award. Okay. So apparently the difference between heroism and stupidity often is success, and indeed he was successful. He managed to survive this charge. And this romantic charge, plus the idea of him being such a high-ranked individual who gave up his rank to charge to the front and all that, gives him a huge high profile. He becomes the poster child of the Spanish-American War.
Didn't he make sure that he had newspapermen?
Oh yes. Self-promotion was one of his other virtues. So he was definitely angling for things, and had his eye on bigger things. Maybe he was in that way we could compare him to, as somebody mentioned earlier, Donald Trump. But he had better hair. So that was really his own. So that was good. I always think when I see Donald Trump, I don't know if that's really his hair, if that's like a tribble or a weave. I don't know. I'm not exactly sure. It's something weird. It's something. It just looks wrong. Huh? Yeah, but the thing is, it's like orange. Where do you get orange hair? Huh?
The chocolate factory.
Well, that's true. Well, it's that whole Jersey Shore phenomenon. That we have orange people in the United States. It's bizarre.
It's a mugwai.
I don't know what it is. Oh, there it is. Oompa loompa doopity-doo. I have a Republican candidate for you. Anyway, see, now that's the problem. Now every time you see him on TV, that's going to be in your head.
See, like it's a bad thing.
Probably actually when you're thinking of who you're going to vote for, thinking Charlie and the Chocolate Factory is probably not the best metaphor for politics. But anyway, the whole story is that since that happens, but the thing is, it's a fun war from us talking about it from this side, and we say there aren't as many American casualties, but the war isn't fun from everybody's point of view. And so let me tell you something serious. I know that I keep on saying you're supposed to have read the book, and I kind of know most of you actually bought the book and haven't seen it since then. Many of you, in fact, your biggest concern about the book is finding it so you can sell it back in a couple weeks. But let me tell you some stuff that really isn't as much in the book and stuff, but is important, okay? Because I can't get to everything, but let me tell you some of the parts. It's not like Spanish-American War is really highlighted huge anyway for most of our stories, but it's big, and it's something that's important. When we talk about the Vietnam War, we say often that American soldiers who came back from the Vietnam War had this unique experience that was very different from soldiers coming back from wars before or since in America. What was different about soldiers coming back from Vietnam?
They weren't crazy.
Okay, why? What was going on there?
So many people were against it.
Okay, because the war had turned so ugly in terms of American opinion, because people had felt that it had been unfairly advanced behind their backs, that there had been lies about it, that there had been obvious stories of atrocities. It was very unpleasant. Soldiers coming home with PTSD, who are already trying to deal with their own issues, then find the public turned against them, and in some cases, extraordinarily hostile, creating a very negative situation. Now, since then, I think that experience changed us as America. It made us very different in some ways, but it also made us look at troops differently too. I think since then we've kind of gotten over the fact, okay, it's possible that we could lose a war, and that's not cool, but it's whatever. But the thing is that we no longer blame the soldiers for the decisions of politicians. Like, we can get pissed off at the politicians for running wars we don't like. But even today, soldiers coming home, do they get that kind of negative treatment when they come home? No, they get parades and discounts at the grocery store.
At the airport.
Yeah, there's good stuff. And I think that's wise. I think it's a smart thing. And I think that, you can even have people who hate the war but are very positive towards the troops. And I think that's a great thing. I think that's a positive thing. And so we tend to talk about this experience for Vietnam soldiers as being unique. But we only do that because yes, it was unique, but really it was only unique for white soldiers coming home from Vietnam. You see, if you were a minority soldier of some other sort, this experience was not new. And particularly if you were a black soldier during these wars, the experience was all too familiar. Because here's what happens. First of all, if you're a black soldier serving during this time and up and through World War II, what's true about service in the U.S. Army or in the Navy for if you're black? Okay, you're in segregated units, right? Not only are you in segregated units, you can only advance so far. And, we talk about the glass ceiling. This wasn't a glass ceiling. This was a concrete ceiling for promotions with spikes heading downwards, okay? You had very little room to advance. You couldn't get promoted. You couldn't work out of your segregated units. Because, as we know, black people serving in the same units as whites would destroy military preparedness. Okay, it would destroy unit cohesion. Units could not work together with blacks and whites in the same thing. We would never be able to work together. So for the safety of the troops, we could not have blacks and whites serving in the same army. Okay, yeah. By the way, I don't know if you know this, in the 1940s, they did a survey of servicemen to find out about how they felt about serving with black troops. Overwhelmingly, they were against it. No surprise, okay? And by the way, even though it hadn't been the main thrust of the survey, they also said, by the way, even though they're not segregated, we're not really fond of the Jews either. We'd like them separate too. Which, for being part of World War II, had a particular kind of bitter irony, okay? But nonetheless, there it is. And by the way, that survey is available. In fact, it's been scanned, and you can find it online if you actually want to read the results of that survey from the 1940s. It's kind of weird. I've got a copy of it and started reading it, which says very sad things about my free time. But yes. I forget if it's called a survey on military readiness or preparedness. I'll look it up. It's 41, I believe, is the survey. It's 40 or 41. And I was thinking of it offhand. I didn't have it in my head or my notes right now. But if you remind me later, I can look it up. Or if you'll email me, I can probably just email you the PDF. I have a PDF on my hard drive. So crazy things one collects. What do you collect on your hard drive? Original documents in PDF. And then people come by and say, "You sad man." Okay. We're so sorry. Don't you know the iPad is for Facebook? Silly man. Anyway, what were we going on? Oh, so if you're a black soldier already, it's a little weird. Now realize, how old are soldiers in general? I mean, when most of them are 18, 19, 20. They're very young. Think about this. The war is in 1897. Which means most of the soldiers who are black soldiers, when were they born? What were they born after?
The Civil War.
They're after the Civil War and after Reconstruction. Okay? Almost all these kids who are going to be going to war were babies after the whole world had set the stage already. All the struggles of their parents are things that are somewhat invisible to them. And again, it's sometimes hard for kids to recognize. I still, when I was learning about segregation as a kid, I thought that it was like a world away, right? It was like in the ancient history, and we often talk about it as such. Except, it shocked me when I found out, I realized, I just started counting, and my parents went to segregated schools, and I finally talked to them about it, but it just boggled my mind, because I couldn't imagine. I thought that was forever ago, right? Well, forever ago was my parents, That's mind-boggling. Well, for these soldiers, these kids, and particularly a lot of the soldiers, these black soldiers. First of all, the black soldiers during the Spanish-American War is a really big deal because in terms of the percentage of black soldiers serving in the theater of war, it's the highest percentage of black soldiers serving in an American theater of war during any war that we ever had. It's not that there are more black soldiers. There'll be more black soldiers during World War II. But as our forces diversify, as we have other groups, including Latinos and others, join in, Asians, other groups, the percentage of black soldiers will never be as high as they were during the Spanish-American War. Okay, so imagine this. Here you are, and a lot of these kids are from the North. So that means they've heard about segregation, never seen it, right? Okay, not to say there isn't racism in the North. Oh yeah, there is. But it's a very different thing, right? It's more subtle. you know. So here it is, that you're